Hello everybody, welcome back to the Kuntry Klucker. My name is Noelle. I am a backyard chicken keeper and I have been doing this for 12 going on 13 years. So today is going to be a video to answer a question that one of my followers has posted on my last video, basically updating everybody on where I've been for the past year. So JD is having issues with his flock basically beating each other up. So at night in the coop, they will pull each other's feathers out and constantly bump each other off of roosts. But during the day, they're for the most part okay. They can cohabitate as a flock fairly well, but then there are times when the flock cohesiveness is not as great. So for JD and also anyone else who would be experiencing situations, disharmony in their flock like this is an issue revolving around pecking order. Let me get the natives some scratch here. I'll continue. All right, guys, we need some over there on that side, Enigma. Here you go, bud. Now, while this answer sounds very simple, it is actually rather complex. So before we can understand how to fix this situation, we probably need to understand what pecking order really is and why flocks will create or flocks of chickens will create a hierarchy or social hierarchy. When we think of chickens, we often think incorrectly and falsely that, they're very simple creatures, they're kind of bird brains, calling somebody a chicken is an insult. You guys are pretty much very aware of some of the social dynamics revolving around many of the phrases we get from basically the chicken. A flock of chickens are very much social creatures. And they will organize themselves in a social hierarchy, which we will often just call for short the pecking order. But basically what this is it is literally and truly a pecking order. So many people will notice in the brooder when you get chicks that as they grow up, maybe second, third week of age, they will start being a little bit more active and they will literally start pecking each other on the back. So in the brooder, even the pecking order is becoming established at these young age because chickens are very much socially structured in a hierarchy. And then as they grow, there will be renegotiations within the pecking order. And many times individuals will then to challenge another individual who was above them in the pecking order to try to establish that position or basically move up in the ranks. Now, typically, if you have a rooster, your rooster is going to be the top of the pecking order. If you have multiple roosters, you will then have underneath the head rooster. Okay, right here is a perfect example. This is pecking order. So, and there was pecking order. So we had these two cochins here. There's another example of pecking order. Wow, thank you, girls. You're demonstrating this very well. So typically in a flock, the rooster will hold the high position known as the alpha rooster. If there's multiple roosters, such as in my flock, the subjugated roosters or the baby roosters will then be underneath the alpha roosters. And then following underneath the roosters will be the alpha hen, and in descending order all the way down to the individual that is at the bottom of the pecking order. This is when roosters are present. I am unaware if JD has roosters or not. They didn't specify. So JD, if I don't answer your question Or if I've missed out some details, please definitely tag me in the comments and I'll try to fix that. But even with hens, in the absence of a rooster, you will still have a pecking order. You will have, at the top of the pecking order, instead of a rooster, you will have the alpha hen. Now, the alpha hen is generally going to be a little bit more bossy in regards to the relationship with the other hens within the flock. So she is going to act much like a rooster, with the exception of, obviously, the husbandry, how they respond to their hens as far as mating and also hunting for them, and taking care of them. The alpha hen is only going to be interested in her position and her position only. And so even with hens, you're still going to have a pecking order. Now, everything that the flock does revolves around this pecking order. Everything from when they go to roost, who sits where, who comes out of the coop in the morning, and especially who eats first. So you will notice that when I put scratch out for my girls, I'm gonna go get some more scratch. Looks like we're running low. Maybe they'll demonstrate for you guys again. Ladies, here we go. Everything revolves around this order. Eating, where they sit, dust bath holes. So you will notice that chickens will dust bathe, and there will be a spot that the flock will favor, and who gets to dust in that dusting bath hole first is very much determined by pecking order, or basically seniority, if you want to look at it in more of a human terms. So at night, and this is where JD is noticing most of his problems. At night, when they go to roost, they have said that the chickens will knock each other off the roost. They will pull feathers out. And I'm not too sure if there was a mention of blood, but I would not be surprised if there was. Yes, this is pecking order. So it sounds like this is a first flock. It sounds like this is a younger flock. And what is basically happening is pecking order negotiations are underway. So when flocks go to roost at night, pecking order will determine who sleeps where, who sleeps next to whom in the coop. And even where they roost at night are positions that are assigned based upon the pecking order or particular individual's spot within the pecking order. So in younger flocks, it is very common to have what I like to call pecking order renegotiations, where there was an order that was decided upon as a flock in the brooder. And then as the flock ages and they are moved outside, they are moved into a new environment, the coop environment, they now have more space, because JD had mentioned that, despite all of this space, they're still fighting at night. Yes, regardless of space, pecking order renegotiations will ensue in the coop when they're moved out to a new environment. Now, although the pecking order sounds rigid, it is very much fluid. So even within my own flock, I will notice pecking order renegotiations. And this usually happens for my flock in the spring, because the roosters, the hormones kind of kick in. The whole chick season kicks in. All the hens have chicks on the brain. And so there is very much a renegotiation of the pecking order, even within my flock, who has been very much established. I'm sorry, this wind is off. I'm going to go in the shed. So even I notice this. And at night and in the feeder, when it comes to feeding, are going to be the prime times when you're going to have pecking order renegotiations within the flock. Now, there are some things that you can do. Generally, I leave pecking order alone. I observe. I let the flock work it out. It can take several weeks to a month, depending on how many people are renegotiating their seat. And generally, as long as there's really no real injury, there's no blood, there's no bald spots, there's no, missing toes and so on and so forth, I will generally let the flock work it out, but I will very much keep an eye on everybody. And when I feel that things are getting to be just a little bit too aggressive, that this is just going beyond pecking order negotiations, and now we have a situation of just outright bullying, this is when I will intervene. So for JD, it sounds like your flock is definitely in pecking order renegotiations, but it sounds like it's going to bullying. Now, it's not uncommon to have feathers missing, because as they fight and as they fuss and tuffle, it's very common to have, a couple feathers. Okay, so here's a pecking order negotiation right here between Smog and Sec. Generally, I'm going to leave this alone because they're not really hurting each other. They're just kind of renegotiating their position in the flock. And pretty soon here, somebody is going to walk away even without me intervening. So Smog obviously outweighs Sec here. But Sec pretty much thinks he's the biggest man on the block, so he has come to the decision that, yeah, I think he'll just keep his seat and just let Smog have his. So even with roosters, we often stigmatize roosters as being, brute, bloody, out for blood, out to kill each other type creatures, when really that is not the case. It's spring, and I will notice a lot more pecking order negotiations in the spring, just like my flock has demonstrated over here in the past 10 minutes of this video. But going back to JD, I'm sorry, I digress. As long as the renegotiations for the pecking order, as long as there's no real injury, I'll just kind of let it go. Like you've seen me kind of just watch, my flock over the last several minutes here. Now, when you get to the point where you're missing patches of feather, where you have skin exposed, where you have blood exposed, this is where you need to intervene, because chickens are very much cannibals. So even though they're owned and even though they're in, protected enclosures, you can breed chickens for many different temperaments and features that you want, but one thing that will always stay ingrained in the chicken is their biological hardwire behavior. So in a flock dynamic, when a flock is free ranging out in the wild, if there is a member that is injured or sick, the flock will unalive the member that is injured or sick, because evolutionarily speaking, when you have an injured or weak member, the flock is opened up to predators. So in order for flock preservation, the flock will unalive a member who is injured or sick. This is why in backyard chicken environments, when there is a member that is injured or sick, the first thing you want to do is isolate them from the flock, because the flock will view weakness as a threat, an exposure to predators, and they will take care of that threat on their own by unaliving that member for flock preservation. So if you have blood, chickens are very sensitive to the color red. So if you have just a simple wound, they will peck and they will peck and they will peck at that wound to the point that you now have a gaping wound that can actually be grave. So once you get to the point that there is blood that is exposed, you need to intervene. You need to remove the member or members from the flock that have open wounds, treat them, allow them to heal, and then you can then reintroduce them. In situations of bullying, I have had several of these over my last decade of chicken husbandry. And occasionally, you can have a member who, instead of just renegotiating a position in the flock hierarchy, they are outright bullies. When I have a situation where I have a hen that is just bullying other hens, or I have a rooster that is just bullying other roosters and other members in the flock, I will remove the bully. Now, when I say remove the bully, I mean, deprive them of freedom and both status for a period of time. I'm not talking about unaliving. I'm talking about basically removing them out of the flock to allow the flock to recover and come to a peaceful renegotiation on a pecking order. And then after a period of time, 2 weeks, sometimes a month, depending on how progressive this bully is, I will then reintroduce the bully, and the bully will then, of course, be at the bottom of the pecking order, and they will have to work their way back up. Now, if the way that I do this is I have a large dog crate. I will remove the bully, put the bully in the dog crate. The dog crate has food, water, and all the provisions that this particular individual needs. And I will remove them from the flock, depriving them of both freedom and status. This will kind of hit the reset button on the flock. So in the absence of the bully, the flock can then come to an agreement on pecking order. Once I feel that that is established and that the flock is, coexisting in a very cohesive manner, there's really no more fighting, there's really no more challenging, roosting and coming out in the morning and feeding, all goes well, then I will reintroduce the bully. Upon reintroducing the bully, I will bring the bully out in the dog crate. I will set it in basically the enclosure of the Kuntry Klucker there, and I will allow the flock to once again get to know the bully. I will let the bully out. Typically, this will resolve the issues. And I have had times where I've had to sequester a bully several times over the course of maybe a season. And then I just basically rinse and repeat. And at some point, basically the flock will be able to cohesively exist and operate within their pecking order hierarchy, and everything will be fine. But it may take 1 or 2 tries in order to remove the bully, to basically allow the flock to come to a peaceful agreement on positions. Now, I will not say I haven't had to rehome several individuals. I have had a rooster. And this is going to kind of be leading into the other video I'm going to do on what, basically raising roosters. I have had one rooster that I have had to rehome because he was just aggressive. And I had a friend who has a farm, who has a lot of chickens and a lot of space, and he needed a rooster that was a little bit more on the aggressive side. And they adopted him, and as far as I'm concerned, he's still living his best life out there on the wide open farm, protecting the girls, because he needed a rooster that was a little bit more high octane, whereas I did not. So I have had to rehome an individual despite everything I have done to try to remove the bully and basically allow the flock to exist peacefully. So I have had to do that. I've only had to do that with one individual. But other than that, just pecking order is normal. Pecking order is fluid. During the spring, you're going to notice a little bit more issues. Even in an established flock, you're going to notice a little bit more issues with pecking order renegotiations. My roosters are going to spar a little bit more. My hens are even going to spar a little bit more, basically determining who is going to be where, in the flock as far as the social hierarchy, going forward. And then again, that will then renegotiate. So it's very much fluid. JD, this is what you're experiencing. You're experiencing pecking order renegotiations. For me, in your position, I would watch very carefully. If you noticed that you have bald spots, that you have injuries, that you are now drawing blood, you need to intervene. You will need to observe your flock and find out who is doing, or basically who is causing the injury. So, and then remove this individual. It could be a hen. If you have just hens, it could be a rooster. Even when I have roosters in my flock, I can still have a bossy hen that I will then have to remove from the flock for a period of time and allow the flocks to recover. and come to agreement on pecking order negotiations. And then reintroduce I usually just, call them the bully. Just, it just makes it easier to explain. Remove the bully for several weeks to a month, depending on how your flock is acting. Reintroduce the bully, and just see how that goes. But what you're experiencing is normal. Even I experience it with my established flock. Generally in the spring, like I've said before, this is common in backyard flocks and backyard mixed flocks. So I wouldn't be overly concerned at this point, but I would be very aware, like you have been, because you've reached out and says, hey, is this okay? Is this normal? What should I do? And that would be my advice. If you can, as the chickens go to bed, just kind of watch the roosting process. Watch who goes into roost first, who goes into roost last. If you can, try to observe within the coop what position they're fighting over. So typically in a flock, the roosters will be in the alpha position, and there will be favored hens by the rooster, that will then roost next to the roosters. So if there is another hen that is trying to take her position, it could be the hen that is bumping her off. It could also be the rooster that is bumping several individuals off. Sorry. It could be a situation where you need more roosts. Sorry, allergies. So when you have a flock that is roosting in a coop at night and there's not enough roosts, those that are higher upon the pecking order will get the roost, and those that are in lower positions, the pecking order will be basically sleeping on the floor. So if you don't have enough roosts, this would also be another thing that you could look at to see if you have enough roosts. If not, add some. And if that is the case, and then the situation resolves, it was just simply there wasn't enough roosts. Even though you say there's enough room, even if there's, a lack of provisions, like enough roosts, that can also cause a flock to engage in pecking order behavior. And if that's not the case, if you have plenty of roosts, everybody has a place to sleep. Everybody has a roost to sit on. I'm sorry, allergies. Then you really are looking at a behavioral issue. You're really looking at a bully who is probably taking pecking order a little bit extreme. And if that's the case, I have just basically laid out reasons and things that you can do in this video here. So yes, normal. And so if there's a lot of other people out there who are experiencing this, especially during the spring with your flocks, this is completely normal. It is normal chicken behavior and flock dynamic behavior. It's really not anything to worry about unless there's injuries, and then in that case, yes, I do intervene, with isolation and then reintroduction of a member that is that has been the bully. So with that, I hope this helps. The next video, unless I get any more comments from my readers that are having issues that they would need like a little help with, I plan on doing my series on roosters, raising a good rooster, how to raise a good rooster, and what to do despite your efforts that you still end up with a rooster that is just an absolute nightmare. What do you do? And I will go through all of that. I will also discuss a little something I'll call Rooster Reform School, where I take a rooster that is a little bit aggressive, and I try to mold his behavior through a series of steps, something I call Rooster Reform School, before I go on to my final steps, which would be rehoming, if I can find some families or a friend who needs a chicken that's a little bit more on the aggressive side. And just some other things that I can do when I have a rooster that I am just not going to be able to keep. So anyway, with that, I'm going to go ahead and close this video out. JD, I hope this has helped, and thank you very much for reaching out. Your comments allows me to do videos on subjects that you all need help with, that you all have concerns with. So this is very helpful to me because it helps me to understand what you guys need. So with that, we're going to bid you adieu because I'm coughing my head off out here in the pollen. And I hope this helps, and we'll see you guys soon.